Hey there's Dave Wills, the internet's crying wrestling fan. And let me tell you, Live and in Color with Wolfie D is one heck of a podcast. Wolfie D is great. He's a great podcaster. Oh, he's still running me, damn it.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Wolfie, how you doing, man? You doing okay today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just sitting out here in my little private gazebo with my hot tub. Not necessarily in the hot tub at the moment, but just chilling out back here, ready to talk a little wrestling, a little PG-13 to the P to the G plus the 1 and the 3. That means JC Ice and I'm Wolfie D. We ain't playing no games, so you better beware. You don't like us, so what? We really don't care.
Oh man, that is amazing, folks. That is a Wolfie D exclusive right there. Nobody else can do it like him. Oh man, it sounds awesome. Well, sounds like you're living the life, and that's what we like to hear, man. Not to take it down a note here, but we do kind of want to start with a bit of a somber note. The wrestling world was really rocked by 3 losses recently. The number one was Jody Hamilton, the assassin. Wolfie, I know you've been everywhere, man. Did you have any run-ins with Jody at all?
Man, unfortunately, that I'm aware of, I was never around him. A little before my time, so I can't really speak on that. I can speak on the fact that as a child, watching the Assassins, I mean, they were awesome. But as far as personally, I don't have anything really on that one.
Yeah, I got to see him wrestle Boogie Woogie Man one time at Council, Virginia, if that counts. But it counts. That was in the mid '80s. Yeah. Anyway, he was scary to me at that time. So, and then of course, you spoke so eloquently. That's on our YouTube page, Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. That's on our Facebook page. That's on your personal page. Speaking about Bert Prentice, before you start, I want to say a quick story. So when we first met, Wolfie D and I was working a gimmick I was a Saudi prince, and I'm a little more Caucasian than the normal Saudi prince. And I worked for Mike Porter. I was working for him my first matches. Didn't know him that well, but I was booked there and got me booked on a Bert Prentice show. And Bert looked me up and down, and he said, "Well, I'll use you, but we got to get you a better gimmick." I didn't change my gimmick, but probably should have, knowing that Bert said that to me. But anyway, do you want to speak on Bert for just a second, Wolfie?
Man, like I said, and I went on Randy Hale's podcast the other night. We talked about Bobby and Bert, and so I've told this story a couple of times. Just to sum up Bert, though, Bert was a hustler, man. Bert was one of the last of the old school carnies, man. That's straight up what he was. Some people didn't like him for that reason, especially more new school people. Have I had my differences with Bert? Absolutely. He was not a PG-13 fan when I first met him. He was a manager. He wasn't a promoter at that time. He was managing teams against us. And, so he wasn't the biggest fan. But, within the past 15 years or whatever, Bert and I consider him, a friend, because as I said in this other thing, and I know some people have listened to the others, and, I hate to repeat myself, but there's a lot of people that haven't heard it. I could call Bert at any time and be like, "Yo, somebody canceled on me on the 15th, man. Can you hook me up?" And 9 times out of 10, Bert would hook me up. Bert always used me well. one thing I didn't talk about that kind of led up to the story I'm going to tell is that Bert always called me a bully. And it was because I always worked stiff, always have. I mean, Road Dogg used to tell me, Wolfie, man, your punches is like getting hit in the side of the face with a rubber mallet. I just work like that. I'm safe, but, I work tight, man. And so realistic. There was, and there was one night where I was working styling Shane Eaton, and that was kind of one of his guys at the time, right? And I emptied, and Shane was hard to work with, good kid, but not the brightest, and he would do weird things. But at any rate, I emptied the toolbox from under the ring that they put the ring together with. And I hit him with the toolbox, and it was a metal toolbox. I hit him with the toolbox, and then I kind of used everything that was in it to do whatever. And said I was a bully. So I think it was the following week, and I'm wrestling Shane again. So Bert has his, 45-minute intermission to sell everything he's got and everything you got in your pockets and everything like that. Yep. So my music plays, and I'm the heel. I go to the ring. I'm in there jawing with the people, getting my heat. Suddenly my music stops, and Bert has the microphone, and he's running towards the ring, waving his hand in the air. Hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute. I forgot to do the raffle. We've got to do the raffle. And, man, I thought, what in the hell is he doing? Any heat that I got right this second just went down the toilet. Any anticipation for this match just went down the toilet. And I knew enough, had been around long enough where this shit wasn't going to fly with me. So, he's standing up against the ring, and he gets down there, and he's got his back, to the ring, kind of his butt on the apron there. And I jumped out of the ring before he could get anything else going. I jumped out of the ring. I literally got like nose to nose with him, and with gritted teeth, where the people in the front row, where nobody could really hear what I was saying to him. And I said, Bert, if you don't play that motherfucker's music, I swear to God, I'm going to punch you right in the face. And he just looked at me. The look on his face was fucking classic, man. It was that Bert. You know how you see pictures of him, people have snapped where he's sitting like at the gimmick table by himself or whatever before the show. He's got that that long face. Right. That's what was looking at me. So I just sat there for a second, and I said, Bert. He stared at me for a minute, and he replied. He said, Wolfie, I've got to get this raffle in. And I said, Bert, you're not fucking doing the raffle right now. Play the motherfucker's music or I'm punching you. Yeah. I think he knew. He was a little unsure of whether I would or not. The bully, so-called, from him, might punch me in the face. Right. So suddenly he turns around with the microphone and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and have this exciting match between Wolfie D, Styling Shane Eaton, and then we'll get on with the raffle. But Wolfie says he can't wait to get his hands on, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So we go and have the match or whatever. Yeah. But just the show, classic Bert, man. Yeah, totally classic Bert. Yeah, and I remember the one show I did with him that was a pretty big draw. I got to manage Dutch against Jerry the King, and that was awesome. And I remember I think he ran 2 intermissions, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if that was normal. Yeah. So if he could, somebody told me he could smell money in somebody's pocket. So anyway, I don't want to speak ill of Bert because I think Bert was a great guy. No, that's not ill. That's amazing. Just Bert. I give him props for being the hustler that he was. But the funny part of it was he felt that I was being a bully to one of his guys, so that was his way of getting back at me because he did not forget to do his raffle. He just wanted to mess with me. Never. So were you guys the main event that night? Do you remember? Were you the it was coming straight out of intermission. I don't remember what was ahead of us or whatever, but yeah. Okay, that was a great story, Wolfie, and honestly, man, that I can just see all of that happening, so do you remember the time frame of that, like what year that would have been? Probably around 97, maybe 8, something like that. Okay. It was at the fairgrounds in Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a great Bert story. Of course, rest in peace, Bert. We know you're running an intermission in heaven right now. So, this one hurts us all right now. The last of the three, and it seemed like it was so quick. And they say famous people, they pass in threes. Wrestlers pass in threes, and it does seem like that happens. And this one, honestly, has hit us all hard. And the beautiful one, Bobby Eaton. Honestly, and I'm going to leave this to you because you're the expert, but in my opinion, one of the best to ever do it. Not just tag team, singles, whatever. In my personal opinion, Bobby was one of the best to ever put on a pair of boots. And
absolutely, absolutely, 100%, man. Bobby could make anybody look good. He made everybody in the ring, and I'm talking about the referees, the managers, the other wrestlers, the guys on his side, whoever was better because of Bobby being in the ring with him. One of the best at calling it on the fly, man. Bobby didn't really go over stuff. I'd never, ever got the opportunity to work with Bobby, but I know of this. Bobby didn't really go over stuff. Bobby called it all in the ring. And when you look at the speed and the magnitude of the stuff he was doing, that's amazing. That's amazing to be able to get those combinations on the fly like that.
Right.
But personally, there was a time period, probably in the mid-'90s there, where me and Jamie lived with his girlfriend. I lived with my ex-wife and my child. Bobby lived with a guy named Donnie Ernesto. He called himself Donnie Eaton when he wrestled shortly. And so Bobby was living with him because him and Donna were separated. Well, that's where I really first met Bobby. And we would all go to it was all in the same apartment complex. We'd all go to the pool. And I'm going to tell you, Bobby loved kids, man. He was God, his heart was so big, man. And he always called my daughter, Darling. Hey, darling, how you doing, darling? He'd pat her on the head, and he'd get in the pool. Me and Chris Michaels, I don't know if I said that. Chris Michaels lived there, too, with his wife and his kid. And Skylar is the boy. So, me and Chris and Jamie, we'd all be laying out tanning, probably had a show coming up or something, trying to get all dark.
Sure.
Bobby's in the pool just playing with the kids, man. And that was just Bobby. And then later on, because when I went to WCW, Bobby wasn't around, so I didn't see Bobby much there. But then TCW, Traditional Championship Wrestling, around, I guess that was 2010-ish or something like that, 2003. Sure. I can't remember. Out of Missouri. What's the kid that ran that? I don't know. His family had a shit ton of money, man, and they started it out really, really good, man, and then they book their friends and think they can book better than the people that have been in the business a long time, and I think that's what the downfall was. And maybe they ran out of money. Mom and Dad said pull the plug on it, but at any rate, Bobby was an agent. So I was around Bobby again a lot there, and I had changed my gimmick from what he had seen last. My work had, gotten 10 times better in my opinion. And Bobby just constantly put me over, man, and coming from him, it meant a lot, somebody like him. He told me how much I had reinvented myself and one of the best makeovers he's ever seen and, stuff like that. So, but yeah, man, Bobby was absolutely the nicest guy in the wrestling business. I think Bobby also died of a broken heart. Now, his health ain't been good for a long time. He's had a pacemaker and all that kind of stuff. And, but Donna, his wife, who is Jamie's sister, Bill Dundee's daughter, that's who Bobby was married to. Right. And, she passed, a few weeks ago. And I think that has a lot to do with why Bobby got sick and died suddenly. I really do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Johnny Cash, the same. Yeah, Johnny Cash, that happened to him. His wife dies, and it wasn't a month or two later, he was gone. And to me, I get that. Bobby, as big of a heart as Bobby had with all us dudes, us guys who he knew better, his wife passing. I mean, it broke his heart, honestly. And,
it happened to my parents. My stepfather passed away right before Thanksgiving. They had been in a nursing home together as roommates for like 10 years or something like that. And both of them in bad health, in and out of the hospital all the time. Well, Pete didn't make it back from the hospital one night. And I knew pretty soon there my mom was going to go. And sure enough, it was about a month later, just a few days over a month. She died on Christmas night. And that's a whole nother story. But, same thing.
We'll get an episode in with about your folks, too, man, because, you know, the cool story they had. And thank you, Wolfie, for sharing those things. I know this was a bummer kind of to start out, but we had to address the loss of those three men, you know, all important to the wrestling. And it seems so centralized, too. The Assassin had been popular in this area. Bert, you know, who may not be known on the biggest scene, but, you know, if you look on Facebook, his pictures with Randy Orton, because he helped Randy Orton get to where Randy Orton is. I mean, there's things, you know, about Bert that he's always helped the guys get to at least tryouts, you know, or even just a spot. You know, I've seen local wrestlers, Dyron Flynn, Sean Hoodrich, I mean, 1,000 different guys go to WWE and be a security guard on Raw, you know, so he was always doing that for guys. Anyway.
And real quick, let me throw this in. I forgot to mention this because this is pretty special too, is that when I came out of the PG-13 gimmick, obviously in PG-13 we wore tennis shoes. I didn't own a pair of boots. And so in between the transition of Wolfie D to Slash, I really didn't know what I wanted to do or how I was going to do it. So just kind of wore tights, and I needed some boots. Bobby let me wear his purple Midnight Express boots. So there's many a match that I had in a pair of Bobby's boots, which is kind of special.
Oh, man, we got to find pictures of that, Wolf. Man, that's awesome.
I think I got some somewhere. I'll have to look.
Okay. That is amazing. Do you know what happened to those? You just get them back to him and Yeah. I would have been like, Bobby, can I buy these from you, brother? But you were you were going in a different direction with your gimmick, too. That's the other thing. I don't know if Midnight Express boots were going to work in the Ultimate Picture.
No, not for Slash.
Slash. I'm telling you, Slash was like the third unknown road warrior. He was like, but also like this dark. Like, honestly, you would have fit so well in the Ministry of Darkness. I mean, you would have fit so well. That I know you were still working PG-13 at that time, but anyway, there's 1,000 different times you would have worked in through the years that just didn't seem to figure out. Just a little too early for you. Okay. So that being said, and we do extend our condolences to the family and friends. Much love from the Wolfie D podcast. Anytime this happens to us, we want to make sure we recognize them. But now we're going to bring a little better vibe back to the podcast. This podcast I have named 1995 Part 1 because we could theoretically have 10 1995 podcasts. Now, I promise you we're not going to have 10, Wolfie will be like, dude, I quit. But it's pretty in the woods on this stuff. So I'm getting deep. Now, I found Dave Meltzer's archives on 1995 for PG-13 Wolfie D, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through dates, and essentially you are going to correct what Meltzer got wrong, okay? So I'm going to put in here all these things about 1990. Now, this starts with one of y'all's best feuds ever, Tommy and Doug. Honestly, it spanned years. And then this will lead into the Rock and Roll Express, and then this will lead into the Smoky Mountain USWA feud. This will then lead into the Tracy Smothers. I mean, but honestly, we're going to take it low and slow, just like Memphis Barbecue. We're going to take it easy. We're going to enjoy ourselves. Does that sound good to you, man?
Let's do it.
All right, brother. So you've come out in 94. You know, you had 3 title reigns, 3 title wins, and you're coming into 95 as the champions. On January 7th is the official first USWA Championship Wrestling TV. Now, we know it had been other initials and other names and stuff, but the official at WMC TV Channel 5 Studios, January 7th, 1995 was the official first broadcast of that.
What that meant was, Jimmy, they redid the set. I mean, it's still in the TV5 studio, but if you recall, shows before that were a lot darker. The ring was different. They brightened up the studio. They put a new ring aprons, a new intro to the show, and all that stuff. So that's basically really what that was.
And that's a freshener up. And, I'm making it seem bigger than it was. It may have been just a thing that happened, and then next week it looked different, But still, long story short, that is what Meltzer's writing. And so basically, you all beat the Hickersons in a non-title bout on that show. We may never talk about the Hickersons again. We'll probably talk about them in a week. Who knows? But what are your memories on the Hickersons there? Do you have any?
Phil was an incredible worker, and I never got to work with Phil. The Hickersons that were on there, I cannot, and if they're listening, I apologize. I can't remember what Billy Ray and something else. I can't remember their names, but they were good workers, man.
Everybody at that time, had to be, or you weren't on TV, right?
Well, to be honest with you, let me tell you this story. The enhancement talent, which we used to call job guys, which is not PC anymore, I guess, at Memphis, the majority of them were freaking horrible. Yeah. Gotcha. The guys that, you knew you'd try to give them something and you just couldn't because they couldn't do it. And it absolutely 100%, I believe, made me better because I had to work around so much on live TV and trying to get my shit over, and it was like pulling teeth to do certain things, and it made me better because where I could, working arm drag somebody, I was having to shoot arm drag people sometimes just to get the move. So some of those guys were the drizzling shits, man.
Yeah, well, hey, and that seems to be the reason they were in that position, maybe,
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We may not talk about as many of those, but like I said, I'm getting, 95, you would be surprised at the image that I see in front of me right now. It's literally broken down. So it's going to get a little granular, and I apologize. You can speed it along as you wish. If you just say that didn't mean anything or it's not important, go ahead. We'll do it. So, like I said, you're the captain of the ship, Wolfie. So, okay, January 7th, you beat the Hickersons in a non-title. Then on January 9th at the Coliseum, you won over Tommy and Doug, and then you lost the titles to them in the same night.
Okay.
So basically something probably happened that caused them to get another shot at you, and you guys ended up losing the titles to that night. Why don't you, instead of getting specific on the exact whys and whats, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tommy and Doug? Give us your thoughts on Tommy and Doug. A little wildfire.
Obviously, as a child, I had watched Tommy Rich a lot. I had seen Doug a little bit because he wasn't too far into the business. I think he started in the late 80s, and I was right there at 89, 90, but we didn't cross paths until, USWA. I could tell you a lot of stories about Doug. Doug and I are good friends. Tommy and I were good friends. Tommy and I, in a way, have a love-hate relationship. I love Tommy to death. He taught me a lot. So did Doug. But Tommy's he's a ribber, but his ribs are brutal. They're not ha-ha ribs a lot of times. They're make you want to fucking shoot him type of ribs.
Right.
And, this, obviously we kayfabe, but I rode around with them all the time. And, I'd wake up at fucking 7 o'clock in the morning to Tommy pushing me on the shoulder with a beer open. Here, pussy, wake up, drink a beer, you pussy. That's the type of shit I rode around with and lived with, partied a lot with him and stuff like that. But we became good friends. I know Tommy's wife and kids, and I know, Doug's family. I love Doug's family. I loved Eddie. Got to wrestle Eddie one time, but I rode with him a few times, and Eddie was cool as a cucumber, man. And their dad, Tommy was always good to me. So personally,
old school dude right there.
Yeah, man. Personally, and I still talk to Doug quite a bit. Tommy tries to call me every now and then. Sometimes if I feel like dealing with it, I'll answer. But sometimes I know he just wants to fuck with me, so I won't answer the phone.
Right.
But but in the ring, man, some kind of way, Randy Hales was booking and had this idea, man, for this feud. We did so much stuff in that feud. We did an angle, and of course we have to remember, and I know you want to get into the dates, but I kind of want to sum up some of it.
That's okay. Yeah.
Eddie died as we were beginning this feud. Okay.
Right. Right.
So Doug took a hiatus, obviously, for a while, and Gorgeous George III, who ended up being the maestro in WCW, he stepped in as Tommy's partner and did a hell of a job. He was a great worker, and he was exactly the person we needed. I don't know that we would have found someone else that honestly stepped in and did the role that we needed him to do, man. He did a great job in filling those shoes while Doug was gone. So we brought in Tommy's mom. We brought in my mom. We brought in my stepdad during this whole thing. I'm kind of, going ahead, but we did so much. We had our head shaved. They did an angle where they put my eye out with some magic killer dangerous ink. I'll tell you about that one. I kayfabed that shit so fucking much because that was back, when kayfabe was still alive, and I was a firm believer to keep it alive.
Right.
What we did was I took Vaseline and literally rubbed it inside my eye where it looked like my eye was leaking, and then we take like cigarette ashes and put it around it to make it look like my eye was just leaking some kind of weird shit. I wore an eye patch, all that kind of stuff, and I had where I live in a apartment. The owners of the apartments were big wrestling fans, and you may know James Pettico.
Right. Sure do.
His mother was the manager of those apartments, and he lived there with her. And at this time, James had nothing to do with the business. He was just a big mark.
Right.
And they were, every day he was knocking on my door and all kinds of stuff, man. It was great because my rent was drastically reduced, but at the same time, I had to, deal with
paid
that.
for it in other ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, when we do the eye angle, like I said, I would go around town because back then, man, I'm telling you, people watched that show. They knew us. Those were the days when people would come up to me while I'm eating dinner, want an autograph. Police would pull us over and let us go. I'll get into some of those stories later. We were fucking over.
Please.
We were really over at that time. And it got even more over after the Tommy and Doug, but that's what started. So anyway, the story, one Sunday morning, I'm asleep after the Saturday night in Nashville and doing the whole eye, my eyes put out angle.
Yeah.
He knocks on my door, and I answered the door half asleep, forgot about my eye. And, him at that time, bless his heart, he believed every bit of it. So I opened the door, and the first thing he said was, "Man, how's your eye?" And all of a sudden it clicked in my head. I slammed the door in his face, and I ran back to the bathroom. Put the Vaseline in my eye, and doctored it up just a little bit, make it look legit, and came back to the door. And I don't know that he ever noticed that it wasn't there the first time I answered the door. If he did, he never said it.
Yeah.
But that's how much I sold that shit. And that's, back then, that's what you did, man.
Hey, kids learning this business right now, write that down. Dedication, kids. and these were the days also that you didn't ride home with the guy you just beat or lost to also, by the way. So,
well, if you did, you met him down the road somewhere. You got rode out with another baby face and met him down the road, and then got let out down the road from the building, or had to meet somebody else or something like that, or duck down on the floorboard, or
yeah, exactly. And what I meant by that was you don't leave the arena or the stadium or the building, whatever. So so dude, that's a great story. So basically, going back here real quick, on January 14th, you lost versus Tommy and Doug on TV in a tag match, and it was a Scott Bowden's career match. And then basically, between that time, you'll wrestle in singles, you'll beat Tommy JC will beat Doug or Doug will beat JC on a TV match. And then, like you said, unfortunately, on 18th of February, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert passes away. And like you said, that does pause the matchup there and does insert Gorgeous George. And thank you for speaking on Eddie there. You're quicker than me to the draw. So, but I don't want to mess up your flow. So, on February 18th, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert passes away. Rest in peace, Eddie. Like I said, a great mind. I mean, can you think of what that dude would be doing right now if you think about it? I mean, he would probably have been, several times with Vince and several times with somebody else. I mean, can you imagine what Eddie would have done? It's pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah. Incredible booker, like you said, incredible mind. I mean, he did a lot in Puerto Rico booking, and a great wrestler too. Not just a great mind, but a great wrestler.
Yeah, and he lived through the golden years. To me, my opinion, late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that's the golden years. And then it went into a lull, and then it had a huge resurgence, massive Stone Cold, The Rock. Can you imagine? He would have had that time, and then he would have had now, which, again, not just saying that Eddie's a great mind. Wolfie should be getting paid somewhere too, but we'll get into that in another moment. But, long story short, rest in peace, Hot Stuff. So Doug is gone and Gorgeous George fills in great. Yeah. So now this is the one I wanted to ask you. Basically, long story short here, you're coming up on the end of this feud because Doug comes back. Okay, and from February 20th to March 13th, Tommy and George wrestled together. And then on the 13th, Doug comes back, and you guys have the super card at the Coliseum. And you guys beat Tommy and Doug in a cage. And your mom, Mama D, was handcuffed to Big Business Brown. After the match, Gorgeous George tried to attack your mom, but your stepdad made the save. A big dude made the save, your stepdad.
He was legit 6'8", 6'9". I got a picture of my stepdad working security for a WWF show, and Hogan's coming out, and he's actually standing right next to Hogan, and they're the same height.
That's a trip, man, because, Hogan's a legit that tall, too, so that's awesome. Tell me a little bit about that match. What do you remember about that match where your mom was handcuffed? And
Well, just a second, too, because there was two main things that we're skipping over of when they put my eye out. The revenge was that I broke Tommy's arm with a baseball bat. And that's going back to kayfabe too, because and it's on YouTube somewhere, but it's a legit baseball bat, and I must pat myself on the back for giving one of the best baseball bat shots that looked legit as hell, and I barely touched his arm. But he went and got actually to a doctor and got casted. Not working the doctor or anything. He just knew somebody. So Tommy wore a cast on his arm for weeks around town. And those are the type of things, like I said, with me doing the eye around town, Tommy wearing a cast, that legitimizes everything, man. It's like people see that and they're, well, damn, maybe he did get hurt, Why would he be... Well, so it puts that question in where you can suspend, because I've always said this, man. People will say to me when they find out, if it's now that I have a regular job and things like that, or just in public, they talk to you, they find out you're a wrestler.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I hear is, not so much these days, but back then you would hear, man, I know what y'all do is, entertainment, and I hate it when they say the word fake, because I say it's not fake, it's fake. But they'll say that, but then they'll follow up with, but there was this one time I was watching so-and-so and so-and-so, and man, he was mad for real, and he really did that to him, and blah, blah, blah. So if you work it correctly and sell the shit, and like I said, even in public if you have to, it's going to put a little doubt in their mind, and then they're going to be more likely to think, well, maybe something went wrong, or maybe he really got pissed, or whatever. But who cares what their reasoning behind it is if they buy it? Because that's when they buy tickets, especially then. I mean, I have to talk in terms of now and then, because it's a whole different ballgame now.
Right. And I even heard a story, I think, that Jamie, when he was younger, had to go to high school or middle school maybe with a collar on his neck because they ran an angle where he got his neck broken.
See, it broke his neck.
Sid broke his neck, and he had to end up going to school, and he said he hated that, man. So, I get that. But, hey, at the same time, I know you know that story probably better than I do, but I'm just remembering from an interview I saw him give there. And Tommy's arm was broken, and then you had another story you wanted to insert
Then the next thing would be the revenge back from that is that, okay, I had the mullet with the curly cues in the back, and so on Memphis TV, they jumped me and cut my mullet off.
Yeah.
So which leads to there was a thing where they were talking about our moms and all this kind of stuff, and that's when it got really heated, and that's how the parents got brought into it. Tommy's mommy and my mommy got brought into it, and also them cutting my hair led to the hair match in which Doug returned out of nowhere.
Okay.
It was the hair match, and Doug comes in at the end with the ether, smothers Jamie with the ether, 1, 2, 3, and we end up having to get our heads shaved in the middle of the ring at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah, and that was, I think, on March 4th, if my dates are correct here. But anyway, long story short, that was massive. You had an awesome mullet. By the way, kids, if you want to know what a good mullet is, go back and look at the 80s and 90s wrestling. Seriously, those guys were the kings of the mullet. And right. That Wolfie, you had a great one. I think we just saw I posted the video on our Facebook, the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast Facebook page. Go like and support, follow that all there. That's our biggest active page, by the way. And we just posted a teaser video for this whole episode, and that was in it. And you could see your mullet was just flowing. So to know that months later that was gone, So then that leads up to the super card at the Coliseum. So tell me stories about your mom. Was she happy to be involved with it, man,
my mother was so proud of me, man. I did that for her, man. I really did, man, because she was, such a huge wrestling fan, and then to know that her son got in it and was, doing well at it, and to be able to have the positioning to be able to bring my mom in on it. I know that made that meant a lot to her.
Yeah,
I know it did.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No,
anyway,
you're good,
that meant a lot to my mom, and it meant a lot for the angle. It just brought so much realism into it, especially then when Tommy brings his mom in and we're doing all that, and then I bring my stepdad. It was a believable angle that obviously entertained the people because they bought a lot of tickets.
Yeah, and hey, that's what they're saying here throughout these notes that I have here of how many people were coming to these Coliseum shows. They broke another record at the Memphis Coliseum, and I don't know how you do more than a to the Rafters sellout, but then you did it again and it was more people. So however you're doing it, you all were hitting on magic there. And so basically what it says here is at this point there's something happens, Jamie is selling his neck, and you were wrestling singles against the family here, the Gorgeous George III. Basically they start to pin in on you at this time, late March, early April. Do you have any memories of Jamie selling a neck injury and then you wrestling singles?
That was the case. That was at the end of the cage match. Tommy pile drive Jamie through a table. Now, the behind the scenes story on that is usually when you get tables, you need the 8-foot ones. Well, they bought a 6-foot table. Those are harder to break.
Right.
So when Tommy pile drive Jamie through that table, instead of it breaking in the middle and, collapsing, the fucking thing just exploded and they went through it, literally through it. Like there was the frame, the wood busted out and they went through the table instead of it collapsing. And when they did, there was a screw sticking out of those metal rails that ripped Tommy's back. I mean, from his ass all the way up to his shoulder blades, man. It got him good. Yeah, it got him good, man. I don't think he had to have stitches or anything, but it ripped the shit out of his back. I remember that. So, and I think James actually I think he went back to Mexico without me during that time. I think either that or he just wanted some time off. I can't remember which one it was. I think he went back to Mexico. But I know he went without me once. So at any rate, then is when I had Mabel as a partner, Big Viscera. I had I know we worked a 6-man with Mabel, my stepdad, myself against Tommy, Doug, and George. So some stuff like that was happening right there.
You're piecing this together perfectly, man.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hey folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
There's some interesting notes at this time. Brian Lee, I know he had been in CWA Memphis Wrestling before, but he officially shows up in USWA at this time. I know he became your partner. We're going to have 1,000 stories about Brian Lee, but tell us some early story about Brian Lee. Did you interact with him much at that time?
I had met Brian in Puerto Rico when we went there. He was down there. He wasn't there long while I was there, but I got to interact with him a little bit down there. Never worked with him. I don't think I've ever worked against Brian. I can't remember. But, so I met him in Puerto Rico. And then, like you said, later on, me and him became the new church with James Mitchell, which clicked.
Right.
I have to say that out of all my partners that I've had, Jamie, obviously, we clicked the best. But me and Brian clicked almost on that level. And it was good stuff.
Well, see, at that time, you guys were seasoned veterans, but you were still young. It was crazy because I remember watching the early TNA days. It was like you guys really, you both were working the new gimmick. I know Brian didn't really change his look as much as you did, but at the same time, you all working in a tag team was a new gimmick for him. And then you had kind of revamped yourself entirely, as we've said before. And honestly, you had really brought out your dark side, and you guys clicking together. That was awesome. So to me, I remember the old days of the long blonde hair, primetime Brian Lee. I remember when he showed up as The Undertaker. I was like, dude, that's Brian Lee, like, what's up? And so anyway, long story, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on that, but Brian, we'll talk about him a lot more coming up, I promise. Also, Mabel. Now, that's another guy. Wow, I've heard great stories about Mabel. I never personally got to meet him. But at that time, tell us a little bit of stories about Mabel. What did you think seeing this gigantic house of a man walk in the building?
So me and Jamie had ridden around with him and Mo when they were the Harlem Knights, I guess a couple of years before, whatever. And my first thing was Mabel was driving, Mo was in the passenger seat, I'm sitting behind Mabel, Jamie's next to me. we were pulling out of a drive-thru or something, and I don't remember what was said, but Mabel didn't like it. And he said, Wolfie, I may joke and I may play, but I don't remember what the last words were. Not like I'm going to kick your ass, or it was something letting me know that whatever I said was not cool with him. And I don't remember what it was, but that was that. Then down the road, I mean, dude, I had a match with Mabel, or actually it was, I want to say it might have been Mabel and George, but man, he made me look like $1 million. He sold his ass off for me because he liked me at that point. If Mabel likes you, he's going to work with you. And he can go, or he could go for a guy that big. And the only thing, I mean, you'd expect everything a guy that size does would kill you. But, for instance, a belly-to-belly from him, I thought, oh, my God. And he belly-to-bellied me. It was like I got sucked into a big, giant pillow and slammed over. It was like he was like soft. his hit the ropes while you're laying down and do the splash on you. That wasn't too bad considering he was fucking 500 pounds. The only thing I remember that was like, motherfucker, was he shot Jamie into the corner, then shoots me on top of Jamie, and then comes in for the splash in the corner. And I swear to God, my spine touched Jamie. It had to have.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. But, like I said, Mabel was awesome, man. I loved him as a person. He was a great dude. Hung out with him some. I liked him a lot, man. Every time I'd see him, he'd be happy to see me, and, vice versa. So, Mabel was
that's awesome. And rest in peace to him, too, Golly, man, think of how many just good people.
I look at some of my pictures, man. I've got a big tote full of pictures from throughout the years, and I often sit there and I go, he's dead. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
And damn. And some of them were my friends, and some of them were, when you're in the business, man, you may not be the best of friends, but there's that common bond.
Brotherhood,
but then a lot of those guys were, I would consider my friends, but then some were just guys that I'd worked with and clicked with, and maybe not a friend, but a good acquaintance, you know what I'm saying? So
right, exactly.
Yeah, man, it's weird.
Yeah, and that's the thing. At this time, you guys and Tommy and Doug, the feud, the official part of the feud. Now you'll end up wrestling Tommy and George III again in few weeks here, but the Tommy and Doug feud officially ends because they move on to Jerry Lawler at this time. And then their focus moves on to Jerry Lawler. So at this time, on the 15th of April, it says you were defeated by Brickhouse Brown, rest in peace, and the Gambler after Gorgeous George III interferes. Now, I think that was, the early precursor to you guys losing, where you all lose the titles to them. What it says here is that, Meltzer's note is not to knock, but the USA, it proves that it doesn't have a good follow-up to Tommy and Doug. And not to knock Brickhouse Brown, not to knock the Gambler, but at the same time, you guys, it's almost like a bit of a step down, is it not?
Yeah, and as great of a worker as Brickhouse was.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, that Gambler guy was good, and I loved that gimmick for some reason. I'm a gimmick guy, and I thought that was cool. Yeah. It was original, and I think
it was.
He could have done more with it, and I think they could have done more with it as far as pushing it or whatever. Only knock on him was everything he did was Arn Anderson. If you watch him work, everything he did was almost spot on to how Arn would do it. I mean, every single move about. And that would be the reason probably that he didn't go further, because you got to – you'll see things that I do from some of my heroes, but I don't do everything they do like they did it. I use a mix of a whole bunch of shit and also my own stuff. And it may sound conceited, but once I got into the wrestling business, I pretty much quit watching anything but myself.
Right.
Every Saturday after TV, we had a couple of places in Memphis there that we could go. People would tape the show for us, and we'd go watch it. And the reason I was watching that is because I wanted to see, okay, don't ever do that again, or continue to do that or change this like that or blah, blah, blah. So I just critiqued myself and really didn't pay attention to too much other stuff, you know?
Well, it's like a football player riding the plane home watching film, you know? I mean, that's how it is, you know? You guys were watching film to see how it works, to see how it doesn't work. I mean, fine-tuning, that's actually what I would consider the peak of professionalism to me, you know? So
yeah, and I see a lot of these guys, you know, post on Facebook, oh, watching this match under the learning tree and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But honestly, if you haven't watched enough wrestling, by the time you get into it, you need to be watching yourself, in my opinion. You need to be seeing what your shit looks like instead of marking out, because that's what I call it. Everybody now, you know, it was taboo, man, back then to really do that. You just do that. Because why sit there and watch what the fans are watching? I don't know. And I know that's changed, and I know a lot of people would highly disagree with what I'm saying. But I feel like you should watch your shit. And I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's the way I did it.
Hey, that's a Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast exclusive right there, kids. Watch your own stuff. You know, it's great to want to be the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express and PG-13. It's great to take things from those teams. God knows 1,000 people have taken from PG-13, John Cena. But at the same time, think about it in the terms of how can you make yourself better? And sure, borrowing things, doing little tributes to other teams you like or other wrestlers you like. But at the same time, what got PG-13 ahead was their originality, right? I mean, come on, you know, you're working your originality.
Got us the job. I mean, we could work, but the gimmick got us the job to, you know, the first break. And as you just mentioned, so many people, and I can kind of tell you that story of when we first got, you know, I don't care, people can look, we were the first ones to do that. We were the first ones to do the hot gimmick and the shorts and the tennis shoes and all that shit. Then came Public Enemy, and then came John Cena, and then came Too Cool, and then came blah, 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 blah. And they trying to, because of, and I'm going to jump here to 95. This is still 95, and this was our first shot at WWE. And this is going to lead into what I'm saying about the, you know, the reasons why they copied us and things. So Grand Rapids, Michigan, you've probably got that on your paper there. WWE Raw. Lawler gets us the shot because Lawler always liked us. So we go in, and it's when they take 2 weeks at a time. The first show we go on against Sonny Rogers and Al Brown. You can't keep Al Brown down. That's the commentary. Vince and Lawler commentary. That line sticks out of my head like crazy.
Well, Vince is giving you crap, and Lawler's like, really? You don't like them? You know, that kind of stuff. You know?
And Vince even gets us confused. He starts calling me Jason, him Wolfie D. Anyway, so we go up. They give us a win. My first match on Monday Night Raw is a win with our finish. You know, leading up to the reason they did that is because they the next week was actually the same night, but the next week we faced the Smoking Guns for the tag team titles. They announced us as USWA tag team champions. We didn't know anything about that because, you know, Vince was, especially then, acknowledging other promotions was just a thing that didn't happen. So
did not happen.
We didn't bring our belts with us. So we could have walked out on Raw with the USWA tag team titles, but we didn't have them with us because we didn't figure that would be a thing. So we have that match. We get the win. Then against the Smoking Guns, it's a 2-segment match, meaning they go to commercial. 2 segments, competitive, not a squash job. But yes, of course, we end up getting beat by them. But I don't think that hurt us. And they even they let the Smoking Guns come to Memphis at the Coliseum and wrestle us there on our home turf. Same thing. And I can't remember how we did the finish. It was obviously in a way not to hurt us, but we couldn't beat them. But I don't remember what the was. But at any rate, that's how we got up there the first time. And this was before, this was 1995. you may can help me on this. I believe 96, 97 is when kind of the Mexican invasion cruiserweight thing became big.
Right.
So
ECW. Yep, you're exactly right.
But they won.
Yep.
They loved, when we were up there, they loved our gimmick. They loved our work. They loved our interviews. This was the first time I had ever done a promo with a teleprompter telling me what to say, okay? And it fucked me up. It fucked Jamie up because we're used to coming up with our own shit and doing it in our own words. That's just how you used to do it. And me and him always were one-take dudes, man. And I prided myself and us on being able to do that. So this teleprompter, and I'm trying to read it while I'm doing it, and, you know, we both fucked up more than once. Finally, we just looked at the camera guys and we said, and I forget who was the agent there with us or whatever, and said, look, we're not used to this, and these ain't even things that I would say. I said, can you give me the points that you want me to hit and let us do it ourselves? And they're kind of like, what? So they did. They turned the teleprompter off, and we fucking nailed it. Boom. And they like clapped for it. They were like, guys, that was fucking great. We're like, yeah, because I can't read something that I didn't fucking say or I would say.
Right.
So both of those interviews that you see are us, them just telling us, hey, okay, say basically this. And so we did. Boom. And so both of those interviews are teleprompter off, live and in color.
Right.
So, okay, back to the cruiserweight thing. Bruce Pritchard was the hiring guy at the time. Like I said, they loved everything. They loved the interviews and the fact that we could do it on the fly and, you know, all that shit. Loved the gimmick. But Bruce, and you know, during that time, you had to be a fucking monster to work up there. You had to be fucking at least 6'4" and, you know, 250. So Bruce said, guys, we love it, but you're just too small for this company.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm saying right there is it was a timing thing. We were just a little ahead of our time because then a year later, everybody smaller than us flying the fuck around on Nitro and in Raw. It's like, fuck.
Timing,
so,
you know?
Yeah. And then, you know, later on down the line, you know, just briefly, of course, we got the call back to do the Nation of Domination thing, and they were supposed to break us off into a tag team because by then we could be small and wrestle because the cruiserweight thing was a thing then, and that was 1996, 97. But just quickly, you know, we fucked ourselves on that. But at any rate, then you start seeing them putting our gimmick on other people because, you know, we had kind of, like I said, fucked ourselves. But anyway, we can go back to the other stuff.
No, and when you're the star of the show, by the way, you can jump anywhere you want, brother. I'm never going to tell you not to. That's why we're doing this. I want it to be off the cuff and real, like a conversation being had between two guys in the car riding to the next town. So we're going to talk about WWE. We're going to get in depth. I have some extra questions on the timing of that. We'll figure all that out, but thank you for that awesome story. That was amazing. So coming back a little bit further back here, and really, folks, we're almost done today. We've had some great stories. We wanted to tribute those that have passed. So really, the next few episodes, you're going to really want to tune in as well. So right now, turning it back a little bit, you took the titles back at the Coliseum. You took them away from Brickhouse and the Gambler. Tell me a little something. What do you remember about Brickhouse? Do you have a quick story about Brickhouse?
Oh, man, I got something I'd probably rather not tell. But hung around Brick a lot, man. Brick was awesome. I enjoyed Brick's work. That's one person I stole some things from. The way that Brick would, and some other wrestlers do it too, but I saw Brickhouse do it. Like, say I hit toss a guy and I'm waiting on him for an arm drag, instead of just standing there, do a little dance in between there, you know, shuffle your feet, whatever, like you're waiting on him, boom, boom, boom. I stole that from Brickhouse. I used to love the way Brickhouse would duck a clothesline with a roll. And today that you see that all the time, but you really didn't see that much back then. So when we did the Cyberpunk gimmick, our thought process was, okay, let's don't wrestle like us. We gotta change some stuff here. So that was actually a challenge, kind of a fun challenge, and still being able to work, but also changing my move set up, the way I did certain things. I tried not to do them like Wolfie D. I tried to do them like Cyberpunk Fire would do it. And at that time, the Power Rangers were hot. And that's the reason I think that gimmick got over so well with the kids, and we sold so many damn pictures with the kids, is because of that. But yeah, just I stole that from Brickhouse. Just the way he would make it, because there can be a dull moment. I see that a lot. Is in between moves. What are you doing? What are you doing just standing there? You know what I mean?
Right.
I had my wrestling school, and something else people may not know is that I ran the USWA Academy for quite a few months during this period of time on Sundays outside at Jerry Jarrett's house. Fucking hot. And that's where I met James Storm on a side note. And he came to the school, and that's where I started training James Storm. But Brickhouse, man, he was awesome. He had his demons. I do too. I heard from him not too long before he passed. He called me, and we cried together. I mean, he knew he was fixing to go, and I was close enough to him where, I mean, if that tells you anything that we cried together, that'd tell you how close I was to him.
Absolutely.
But he knew he was fixing to go, and it was a very, very sad conversation. But I always enjoyed working with him. I worked with him a lot, and he was a hell of a talent. But certain things held Brick back.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Wolfie. Really, we're about to wrap up this segment of the podcast today. Of course, we have our current affairs that we like to, surprise you with and make you have to say things off the top of your head. It's fun for me. So May 20th, you and Brian Christopher defeat Bill and Jamie in a tag match to earn a future title match versus Owen Hart and Yokozuna. They were the current WWF tag champs. Of course, that was USWA and WWF working together. A USWA kind of as a feeder and a training system for them. I don't want to say minor leagues because that puts the USWA on the level that I don't think is deserved, because I personally think USWA is on the same level as the Jim Crockett. Now, people may say, dude, you're an idiot, but I personally think that. It may have been the way that I was watching it at the time, but personally I think they're on the same level to me,
Well, I'll just say this, man. I challenge anybody to be able to I knew the behind the scenes stuff of how tough it was, because you had Saturday morning TV live at Memphis. Well, you'd go to Nashville and you would do what was done last week on TV. All the other towns were a week behind. So you would do Saturday TV, go to Nashville, do last week's shit, go to Memphis, do what you just did on TV, go to Louisville, do last week's shit, Evansville last week's shit, and then whatever spot shows you had on Thursday or Friday. And then getting those tapes out, because then they had to get the tape, edit it, and mail it to the other TV stations. So I mean, there's a lot that went into that shit, man. And also 6 days a week, twice on Saturday. That's a tough schedule. That's a tough schedule, man, for your body. And it was all driving. I mean, we were driving average probably 1,500, 2,000 miles a week. So I don't know how that could be considered minor league. Hell, the guys now don't work that much. And believe me, I worked hurt so many times, and I don't mean to knock, but dude, these guys get a fucking hangnail and don't want to work, or get off, or however that shit goes. I worked with my back was so screwed up. I went to the ring with a weight belt on one time, and I could not bump, because if I would have bumped, I wouldn't have got back up. And I was working with Brian Christopher, and for his comeback, the best I could do, every time he'd punch me, I'd stagger back and bounce off the second rope and back up to it and bounce back up to the second rope. Yeah. That was the best I could do, but I was out there doing it, and my spine was so screwed up, I had to go to the chiropractor and get worked on for a couple of weeks and whatnot. I've been in the ring with the fucking flu. I actually, swear to God, wrestled in a hoodie because I was so fucking cold and had the chills and a fever. I worked for Bert one time, Flash, with a legitimate bad ankle injury that I had a cast on and crutches, and I made do with it. I told him, we did the deal where I just wasn't going to not be in this match. Bert tried to tell me, no, and I'm talking about it in front of the people, no, we can't let you do this, and I did it. I just hobbled around on fucking one foot. It wasn't the greatest match ever, but it made sense, and the people knew I was legitimately hurt, and so we did shit like that, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's another thing, kids. Take the notes on this. Working that extra, and think about if you were a normal 9-to-5 guy. Put yourself in the shoes of a professional wrestler. It is the same thing as you driving to work every day, but on the way to work, you get in a car accident, and on the way home, you get in a car accident, and then you still work 8 hours, and you do it every day except maybe one day of the week you don't work. Think about that. Nobody would be able to do that. I've been told that every time you take a bump, it's like a car accident. And I read an article about that.
Yeah, a doctor wrote an article about that. It's like I forget, a 10 mile an hour, just the basic bump is like a 10 mile an hour car wreck, something like that. And I don't know how much time we got, but we just mentioned car wrecks, and there's a classic story that I can tell you. It's a little bit long, but I think this is a good way to end the show.
This will be it.
Kind of sums up 1995, and to explain what I said about we were over. To this day, I don't know how we probably aren't still in jail after this. So we have a match it's in Jackson, Tennessee. It's at a bar.
Okay.
Now there's a parking lot, and across the parking lot there is a titty bar that had just recently been shut down. That's where we dressed at. So you go in there, everybody hung out in there, walk across the parking lot, go into the bar, have your match. Me and Jamie are supposed to wrestle Tommy and Doug that night. So we get there, and we're in this recently abandoned titty bar, and we look in the coolers behind the bar, and there's still beer in them. So I can probably not even have to say that we started drinking beer that was in the coolers.
Yeah.
And maybe doing a few other things that somebody brought with them.
Right.
So by the time we get to the ring, I'll be honest with you, I don't even remember the match.
Yeah.
But I've had that happen before, and then for me, it's like riding a bicycle. It might not have been my greatest, but I guarantee it worked. So
sure.
At any rate, some of this, what I'm telling you, I do not remember. The reason I know it is because the next day I had to go back to the bar and apologize to the staff and everything. So we have our match. Well, me and Jamie had ridden there with some girl that he was messing with or whatever in her car, okay? So this is a Friday night. We got to be at TV at 8:30 in the morning. So we stay, and after the matches, we stay. Everything's on the house, and they said that me and Jamie probably took 2 shots of everything on their shelf, plus drinking some beer and whatever else. So somewhere in the night there, it gets rowdy enough to where the bar is closed. Pretty much most of the patrons are gone, except for people that we wanted to stay with us. And let's just say there was some public sexual activity going on. I mean, it was a mess. Somewhere in there, Jamie thinks that I'm hitting on the girl that he's with, and I must say this too. This would not be the first time this happened with me and Jamie. So anyway, I think I followed him into the bathroom. He went to the bathroom. Well, we get in a fight, and when the bouncers came in, I had Jamie by the head, like slamming the back of his head into the walls, back and forth, like the movies where they, change and go to the next wall. Right. And then I grabbed the plunger, the toilet plunger, and it was wooden. And when they walked in, I was beating him over the head with it, and it had broken. So I was just beating him with the stick on top of the head. And Jamie's head was fucked up. He was bleeding everywhere. There was blood on the walls, everything. And so at this point, I remember them, one grabbing me by each arm, pulling me backwards, me kicking at him. So, needless to say, they throw us out and lock the door. Well, so here we are standing outside this bar. However it happened, we weren't mad at each other anymore because we realized that the keys to the car were locked in the bar. So we're beating on this door. Jamie's bleeding everywhere. We got this girl, if you can imagine that scene. So
sure. Yeah.
They give us the keys. Well, we decide we're hungry, still in this state. And, I think Jamie might have tried to clean up a little bit. But we went across the interstate over to the Waffle House. Well, you know how Jamie is, and I'm not going to say any more other than our waitress was not white.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have something that he wanted. He threw a fucking fit. We get kicked out of there. So then we decide, and now Jackson is 80 miles from Memphis, okay? So we got to get to a hotel. By this point, it's fucking 3 o'clock in the morning. We got to be there at 8:30, and we're fucking slammed. So we go over to the Exxon and buy a 12-pack. Start heading back to Memphis. And I've got the 12-pack at my feet. The girl's in the back, Jamie's driving. I'm watching Jamie drive as best I can. And and like I said, now the interstate is very empty at that time of the night, of course. Mm-hmm. He is swerving from one lane to the other and back. I mean, bad. And so I said, Jamie, and we had done this before, like if he needed to reach for something in the back or whatever, you know how you just reach over from the passenger seat and grab the wheel?
Yeah.
So I said, Jamie, you're fucking up, dude. I said, we're going to get pulled over. I said, let me have the fucking wheel. So I grabbed the wheel, and I put one hand over one eye so I could squint to be able to see, not double, because I was seeing double.
Right. Yeah.
So little did I know, when I grabbed the wheel, Jamie kept his foot on the gas and fucking went to sleep.
Oh, man.
Passed out. And I didn't know that, because I'm not looking at him. I'm concentrating on the road.
Yeah.
So then I realized that I can't even fucking do it. I'm like, there's no way I can drive like this fucking 70 more miles to fucking, how many far down the road we were.
Right.
To Memphis. So I let go of the wheel, and I said, brother, I can't do it. You're going to have to do it. Now, keep in mind, he's asleep right now. And so I lean over and put my head against the window, and I go to sleep. So he's got his foot on the gas. We're both in the front seat asleep.
Yeah.
I guess the girl's asleep back, too. So next thing I know, we both fucking hit the fucking windshield. Fucking Jamie wakes up, grabs the fucking wheels, and we skid off into the median. Well, thank God what we hit was something traveling in our direction. It was another car. We hit him in the ass end. So I start panicking. I'm like, holy fuck, we're going to jail. We're going to jail, And so the beer that's in the front seat with me, I open the pack up, and now we're in the median, and I start humming these motherfuckers, throwing them. I'm trying to get across the interstate into the woods over there.
Right.
I was so screwed up that I threw the beer all around the car.
Oh, my God.
So then, and brother, I'm telling you, I know this sounds outrageous, and people listening may sound like, no fucking way. But
we believe
God's story. And this is a testament to how over we were. So anyway, here comes the cop, state trooper, black guy. He puts us in the back of the car. Well, he's letting Jamie get in and out. What Jamie's doing is he's going up to we hit these 3 old ladies, right?
Yeah.
And he is talking that shit. And he convinces ladies not to let the ambulance come, that it will be cheaper on their insurance if they just go to the doctor in the morning because they weren't really hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no ambulance shows up. No other cops show up. Okay? We're in the back of the car. We are reeking of alcohol. We are.
Right.
And this cop says, you guys been drinking tonight? No, sir. He wrote something down. He said, this beer that's all around y'all's car, does that belong to y'all? No, sir.
Yeah.
We just crashed into a 12-pack. So he wrote something else down. The next thing I know, Jimmy, This is the crazy part. The tow truck shows up because the car wouldn't start. Jamie tried to start as soon as we wrecked and take off. Thank God that didn't. That probably wouldn't end up working. But they put the car on the tow truck. Them ladies are gone, okay? Them ladies drove away. No ambulance, no nothing. Just that one cop is there. They don't have dash cams back, none of that shit. So they put the car on the tow truck. Me and Jamie and the girl get in the front seat with the tow truck driver. He drives us to Memphis, drops the car and us at the Motel 6. We wake up the next morning and just look at each other like, what in the fuck? How are we not under the jail right now? And so when we get to TV, you know, the bar had already called, you know, telling on us and everything. And I tried to say I had to go back and apologize. But so the story of the reason we got let go is because some of the old timers, you know, we're telling them what happened and blah, blah, blah. Like Tommy, and then they're like, was it a black state trooper? Yeah. So he had a reputation for letting the boys go. I forget, they had a nickname for him. I can't remember what it was, something like Smokey Bear or something, I don't know.
Sure.
But at any rate, that is how the story concludes. We did not go to jail, never heard nothing else about it, and I went and apologized, and end of story. So to this day, it still baffles me when I tell it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a movie, dude. You know?
Yeah.
The funny thing is that is y'all, like, people talk about living the gimmick, but wow, that is living the gimmick right there.
Yeah.
So that is the best way we could wrap up this section of the podcast, honestly. So we're going to head into current affairs. DJ, hit the music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back to current affairs. So the first thing, of course, was the passing of Bobby Eaton, Bert, Prentice, and the assassin. That we've covered in full. And rest in peace to all three men, great men as they were.
Yeah.
The second item I have today is one of the bigger news stories for wrestling is Bray Wyatt, who was released by the WWE. And I don't know if you're familiar with Bray. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about him, but what do you think about that? Well, what's going on there? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I actually do know him. I met him when I lived in Tampa. Never worked with him or anything like that. And it was Fandango is a friend of mine, and I met him in Tampa as well. And he knew Bray. They're buddies. So that's how I met Bray. And it was funny, man, because I figured, this dude, even though I've worked with his daddy, so it was just funny that, he just out of the, hey, Wolfie, how's Jamie? It's like he knew me,
right.
and because I'm not like that. I'm not like, these young guys should know me. No, I figure,
of course,
I don't know who the fuck I am. But anyway,
right.
He did, and super, super nice guy, man. Super nice guy. Now, I have seen the stuff he does. I love it. I think he's a good worker, and I love that gimmick, man. I'm a gimmick guy, and I think it's great. I don't know why they would do that. I really don't.
Yeah.
There's got to be something to it. Because why would you let the guy go that's got one of the best gimmicks and is the most over guy you got? Why would you let him go? That makes zero sense to me unless there's some kind of work going on. I've kind of thought a little bit about, you see AEW's getting some people, and it could be a Vince tactic to try to kayfabe start a fucking, another Monday Night War. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Or it could have been,
yeah.
It could have been something with Bray. I don't know.
Right. I heard that he was making a big contract, and I'm it seems like they're cutting the big contract guys. But it's funny to me. He's one of the most. You're getting what you're paying for with that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would say so.
He's extremely inventive and creative. You just like you said, you're a gimmick guy. That is the biggest gimmick they've got, in my personal opinion. I loved it when he came in and he was this slick talking New Orleans cult leader guy, you know, and I've liked all of it. Start. I thought, you know, and I love those second generation guys. I like those guys. Anyway, ridiculous that he was fired, unless, like you said, it's some sort of work, or maybe he wished it so, you know, maybe he asked for it. I don't know. So.
Or even if it is what they're saying, budget cuts. I don't know all the ins and outs of the whole Peacock deal or whatever, but you know, sometimes there's executives that don't give a fuck about how over somebody is. You know, they're looking at those numbers on the payroll sheet and how much money's coming in and how much money's going out. So you never know.
Bottom line. Yeah. Anyway, well, that'll befuddle us as we go here. Another thing I thought was hilarious, you know, Nick Gage, we talked about him last week wrestling Matt Cardona. Now he wrestled Jericho this week in Jericho's 7 levels of whatever he has to get to fight the MJF guy. But long story short, at the same time that he was using his gimmicked up pizza cutter, they were doing a picture-in-picture advertisement, and a Domino's pizza ad pops up at the same time. Knowing if you were the guy, you would have totally done that. You would have placed that ad at that time, knowing, I don't think they did that, because personally, I feel like advertisements, you know, I don't think Vince or Tony Khan have ads at their button and they just say, play the Domino's one now, play the Hertz Rent-A-Car. You know,
I don't know. Hearing that, I believe that was done on purpose.
You think?
And I love it.
Hey, I do too. I think it's great.
I can see that being Jericho's idea.
Yeah, well, hey, and I love that. But if they did that on purpose, I love it. But golly, he's genius. Holding up that's genius. Because, he did kind of walk around as Jericho's laying there. So that's hilarious, actually. I see your point now that I think about it. Yeah. Anyway, pizza cutter, that's got to be some sort of gimmicked up pizza cutter, right? He's not really laying into him with the one we've got in the drawer here at my house.
I would say it could be either or. He's probably working it. It could be dulled a little bit. It's easy to dull one of those with,
Sure.
But then again, he might have said hard way me, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, Jericho, he was already bleeding in that match. So I don't know, man. Would you let a guy hammer at you, especially a guy like Nick Gage who maybe didn't go through the training that everybody else did?
It depends on. I've let people hard way me before, and it all depends on the situation. Jericho's making money, man, and he's also kind of got a bit of personal stake in it that he wants this thing to succeed. So, I could see him saying, man, just do it. Just don't go all the way across my dig in one spot right there.
Don't slice my face off. Yeah.
Well, sometimes too, and that's probably the case here, but some nights I would bleed, 6 nights a week, and I had to bleed on certain things. I wouldn't even have to use a blade. I could just tell them to punch me real hard, and that blade job from last night, and it would bust open. So
that would open it up. Yeah. Well, anyway, I remember hearing about Sabu, that it was like Sabu was like that. Basically, any given night you could punch Sabu, and he was going hard way, because that just, Yeah. Have you ever hard weighed in the wrong way, though? Have you ever been at a restaurant and it just start bleeding or anything like that?
It would be drippy sometimes the next day, depending on how deep I and some of them have been hard to close. I was always the bleeder, and with PG-13 and TNA, I ended up having to be in all these fucking wild matches with Raven and Sandman and
Monsters Ball and
and I was bleeding all the time. I guess I kind of earned a rep in that way, I guess.
Yeah, well, red equals green, I heard. So, hopefully that was the case. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's my current affairs for the week. Honestly, I hate to be a downer, but the passing of those three men was the top of the current affairs. We covered that at the beginning of the episode. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. Wolfie, tell them about your social medias here. We've got Live Wolfie D on Instagram and Twitter. We've got our Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast Facebook page. And then do you have your personal page? Are you?
Yeah, I got my personal Warren Wolf, WOLFE. That's my personal page, and I don't mind if people get on there. Just don't be disrespectful, because I do post personal stuff on that more than I do, obviously, anywhere else. But yeah, man, I'm excited about this podcast. I hope we can, get a lot of people listening here. I do have a lot to tell and to say, and there's a documentary on Amazon that, quite honestly, man, it wasn't done the right way, and I hate the guy that did it. We had a big falling out, and he hasn't paid me. So for those of you that see that on there, just know that I'm not making a dime off of that if you decide to watch it. If someone else is making money off of that. So
try to steal it somehow. Try to watch it for free on some, like a Russian piracy website. Watch it on that instead of the Amazon. Send Wolfie $5 too when you watch it every time. And then, so that leads me to another story. We have so many plans. We're talking with Pro Wrestling Tees about getting some T-shirts up. We're looking at possible action figures for the PG-13. Those would be the Jack bone-crushing action figures.
There's definitely going to be minis, miniature action figures, probably like 3 inches high. Those are already, I've seen the covers, I've seen the prototypes. Those are on the way.
And that's another thing too. You've got the minis, you've got the trading cards coming out. Also, Wolfie, they can contact the website, the podcast Facebook page. You can PM us there. You can PM Wolfie directly on his Facebook page, on the Twitter, on anything we've got. You can contact us directly and get some autographed, personalized pictures of Wolfie D as well. And these are beautiful 8x10. He'll personalize them. Heck, if you want him to say whatever you want him to say, as long as he's cool with it, he'll write it on the picture too, So if you want it for your kids, get a picture for your kids and get 2, get 3, get 4, however many. Send Wolfie a message. If you send me a message, I'll get it to Wolfie. We'll get you a picture sent out, and it'll be a great price. It's honestly a bargain compared to a lot of the places that you get them at. So contact Wolfie there.
Let's also hit on the fact we do have some sponsors. There's a link, I believe you put it on the Facebook Live It in Color page, where you can be a sponsor. There's 3 levels of sponsorship. There's one where we will mention you and talk about your business or just yourself if you'd like, or your product, whatever it is you want to plug. There's a second level where we'll do that, and I'll also send you 8x10 signed however you like. And the third level is going to be those 2 things plus a phone call from me to you. So,
and we'll play that on the podcast, So you want to get a little famous, get a little podcast love, get your name on there. Hey, go onto that sponsorship. That's on our Anchor page. If you look on our Facebook page, you'll see all the opportunities. Click on that button. Click on the support button on our Anchor page. It's anchor.fm/Wolfie D. If you go on there, click support, there's 3 levels, and we'll hook you up. All that combined into that. That's a heck of a deal, Wolfie. You don't sell your pictures for no $4.99. I know that. So that's a heck of a deal. So, if you sign up for $4.99 a month, you get that plus your name in the podcast. We're looking at new opportunities to add to that as well. There's different levels of sponsorship. I was thinking we should call the $9.99 the Wolf Pack too. What do you think? If you'll be a member of the Wolf Pack. It's WOLFEPACK, not the NWO Wolfpack. This is the real Wolfpack because he's a wolf. I think the $9.99 level will be the Wolfpack. I think. What do you think of that? You like that?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, that's it, man. I'm Jimmy Street. I'm James Rock Street on Instagram, Twitter, Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Facebook page. You contact me there. Contact anything. Also, James Rock Street on YouTube. I have some of my old band music on there if you ever want to listen to some music from the late 90s and early 2000s. That's my stuff. Thanks for listening. Up next, we're going to feature some other podcasts that we're friends with that we want to feature on here as well, so you can get a little advertisement from that. Also, if you have a business or any kind of product and, you basically sell it through our podcast, we'll be glad to create an advertisement for your business to where that way you can actually get advertisement through us, the podcast, to people that maybe never hear about your product. That's another thing we're looking at too, right, Wolfie?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've gotten a lot of likes and listeners so far this early on in this venture. So I just hope everybody keeps tuning in, keep sharing it, keep telling everybody to listen. And I just want to say thank you to the people that have listened.
Absolutely. And word of mouth is the best. If you tell one person about our podcast, it works in so many ways. Tell your best friend that you always watch wrestling with, you watch PG-13 with. Tell anybody that listens to wrestling podcasts. There's a new one out, and it's telling it like it is from Wolfie's perspective. I'm really looking forward to the rest of this year, Wolfie. I really am. So I hope you're excited too, brother.
Absolutely. Like I said, I appreciate your enthusiasm. You've worked your butt off on this, and just publicly, I want to thank you for putting in the work that you're putting in for us.
Well, I want us to be everything we can, and I really gratefully, you're very welcome on that, Wolfie. It's my pleasure. I think you've got an amazing story, and I think the world needs to hear it, and that's what I'm here for. So with that, if you don't have anything else, Wolfie, I'm going to let the people go here. Have a great day, Wolfie, and we'll talk soon, okay, buddy?
You too. Thanks, everybody.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is the Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling YouTube channel.
The thoughts wrong in this sport. He's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think. You're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski. He's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
If you're a pro wrestling fan, there's something for everyone at the Cheap Heat TV Podcast Network. From the Pro Wrestling Discussion Show, Cheap Heat TV Live, to the interview show, the Jackson Interaction Podcast with the king of all wrestling media, Gene Jackson, to the silliness of the Whitey Jenkins Show, and the brand new Zip, Xander's Irresistible Podcast with Charles Anders. You can check them all out and much more over at cheapheattvlive.com.
In a world that has been completely divided for so long, two movie fans have decided to unite for the people and the betterment of mankind. One, an action movie buff. The other, a horror movie fanatic. Together, they will try to bridge the gap of both genres into one podcast with their battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Listen along as Charlie and Nate alternate each week talking about action and horror movies they cherish, mostly from the VHS era. Also, including some modern examples that felt like the movies they grew up with by answering the battle cry, Give Me Back My Action and Horror Movies. Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Look them up on Facebook and Instagram.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
I got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap for your dome.
He got a cap
for your dome.
And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color, from rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are, without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip-hop. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.